The Democrats are literally talking about nominating Kamala Harris. Well, the Democrats maybe, or maybe it's just all those people around Kamala Harris, all of her handlers that are being instructed allegedly to say, hey, float her name for governor of California, float her name as the contender in 28, because guess what? This woman needs to make money. She needs the moolah, and she needs it to keep on coming in. So how's she going to do that other than just shake down all her favorite celebrities and favorite rich people, and then average folks too? I mean, don't forget, she's very proud that she raised $1.4 billion, most ever raised in a campaign. Nothing to show for it, of course, but she gets these little handlers to go on MSNBC, that dreadful network, and keep talking her book.
The most sense. What's interesting is Harris is more popular now than she was before she ran for president. That's not something that typically happens. And when you talk to Democrats, not many of them are blaming her for the loss, right? They know that it was 107 days, and they nitpick about some of the other things, but it wasn't her as a candidate that they weren't impressed by. And so when you look at 2028 and the names that are kind of bounced around, she has the biggest name ID of any of them for obvious reasons. California governor, also on the table. She's wanted that job for a long time. It would be the most power that she's had in elected office. But there is the sense around some of her allies and aides that it might be a step back, right? Publicly, right? Her as vice president, almost being president, and then going back to be governor of a state. And that's one of the things that they're tussling with right now.
Oh my gosh, yes, she just has so many options. Everybody wants Kamala. They're talking about her for 28. They're talking about her as governor of California, but gosh darn it, that would be a step down for this lady. Listen, this woman is not talented. She's never been able to really legitimately win anything. She couldn't even get to first base as a candidate, as president. Remember 2020? She went up one side and down the other with Joe Biden trying to paint him as a racist. He crazily enough chose her anyway. If I were him, I would have been very careful about choosing her to be my VP. And by the way, I'm right on that. Am I not? Look at what she did. Ultimately, I mean, granted, he couldn't run, but could they have not put somebody better in? Could they not have primaried him? I said here as much over and over again, you guys can't run Joe. Are you crazy? You're really going to run Joe? And so then they ran Kamala, which means they are crazy, right? Like, this was just dumb. And there was no internal polling all along that ever showed she had a chance in HELL. Look at the big article in the New York Post. No can do. No can do. No can do. In other words, Harris never had any shot of winning. All of the internal polling showed that, which just makes you wonder, what was the NBC News poll about? What was the ABC News poll about? Or the CBS News poll about? Or the New York Times poll about that showed it was close? They didn't show it was necessarily close. They didn't show her winning. They saw Donald Trump winning from the very beginning, and yet she went out and raised all kinds of money anyway, right? $1.4 billion worth, and she thinks that she can do it again?
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
So I'm not sure who let her do that, right? Like, where was the lighting expert? Where was the wardrobe expert? Where was the, let's make sure that you're coherent and that you're with it and you can talk instead of, well, the rumor online is that maybe she was 3 sheets to the wind. I'm not suggesting that, but certainly this was not the best Kamala Harris we have seen. It was very funny. I saw some meme that was going around that had a nice, pretty picture of her as her official campaign picture, and then it showed a picture of her like that. And it was like Kamala in the regular polls, Kamala in the betting markets, right? Because the betting markets always knew that she really didn't have a shot. And it was like 2 different versions of Kamala, one being her looking like that, which is pretty sad and forlorn, and not necessarily the great image that you want to convey right after the campaign if you're trying to rally the troops. But here she is bragging that she raised all that money. I mean, I wouldn't be bragging about this because you squandered it. And now you're out there trying to raise more money to still pay your debts. You still have vendors that you need to pay from all those fancy concerts with all those fancy celebrities that you paid to like you.
In the time it was personal for you, and you gave all that you could to support our campaign. Because of your efforts, get this, we raised an historic $1.4 billion, almost $1.5 billion from grassroots supporters alone, the most in presidential campaign history. Nearly 8 million donors contributed an average donation of about $56 to fuel our people-powered campaign. And understand that the work that we did included the work that so many of you here did, which is to talk to first-time voters. Many of you are first-time voters. And to talk about...
I'm sorry, but guys, if this is who you're going to put up in 28, then hey, game on. You know what? You've already lost. Like, you just don't even care anymore. And there are some Democrat donors that are saying, wait a second, like, we need to gut check this. There's a guy that went on to Fox the other day and he's like, no, she's not going to run. She's not going to run because she sucks, right? Like, she is a terrible candidate. Here's a guy actually telling the truth about the way things go.
The president has been instructing advisors and allies to keep her options open, whether for a possible 2028 presidential run or even to run as governor in the state of California in 2 years, as Harris has repeated in phone calls, I am staying in the fight. Your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is, you know, she thinks she's Obama. She goes to Hawaii because Obama goes to Hawaii. She started talking like Obama, imitating Obama. She is not Barack Obama. She has no talent. She can never run for president again. She ran once and got 0 delegates. She got 8% of California. I begged them not to put her up. She was going to be tethered to Biden no matter what. That was a zero-sum game for her. But she thought that all these votes were for her. They were not. The votes that she got were people voting against Trump. And the votes that Trump got were the people voting for Trump. What the Harris campaign should have done, instead of avoiding Joe Rogan and podcasts, it turns out that Barron Trump, who looks like a runway model, was telling his father, you need to go on podcasts. You need to go on Joe Rogan. You know, he was 3 hours late to a rally because he was doing Joe Rogan because that was so important. So Barron Trump is a lot smarter than everybody in the Harris. They said they didn't go on Joe Rogan, the progressives around her. You heard what Carville said. The progressives didn't want to go on Joe Rogan. Look, if I'm running, I'm going on Joe Rogan. I'm living on Fox. That's how you change minds. They played hide the ball. They lost badly. She should go away and never, ever come back. She spent almost $2 billion. They're raising money this week to pay off the debt. If you can't run your campaign, you damn sure can't run the country.
And that guy's a Democrat. Okay, he's a Democrat, but he gets it. If you can't run your campaign, you definitely can't run the country. And by the way, why wouldn't you play for every single vote you could? This is what Donald Trump did so brilliantly. And yes, Barron Trump had a hand in that because he got it. Like, he's like, wait a second. The kids are listening to the podcast. It's like my kids. I kid you not. They're like, you know, they felt kind of bad for me, I guess, back in the day when I was on Fox. And when I showed up on YouTube, they're like, finally, you made it, Mom. I mean, you're making something of yourself now. I mean, to me, it was sort of inverted, right? Because I grew up in a day when we would sit down as a family and watch the CBS Evening News, or we actually used to watch ABC's World News Tonight. You had NBC Nightly News, and to me, that was like a big deal. And I did all that. And then I went to cable, and I did all that. And the kids are still like, you know, you're nowhere until you're on YouTube. Now you're something. But this is the thing. Kids get that, right? So Barron Trump understood that. And they had yet all these little prickly, ornery 23-year-olds that maybe sort of got the power of new media, but also didn't like that new media represented often a different viewpoint. And so, yeah, you got James Carville, the Raging Cajun, as they like to call him down there in Louisiana, saying these kids are a bunch of idiots, just idiots for not having her do what obviously she should have done.
Not only am I not interested in your opinion, I'm not even going to call you by your name. You're 23 years old. I don't really give a what you think. And let me tell you another huge error this made, is when people said campaigns need to reflect progressive values. No, they don't. No, they don't. If I were running a 2028 campaign and I had some little snot-nosed 23-year-old saying I'm going to resign if you don't do this, not only would I fire that motherfucker on the spot, I would find out who hired them and fire that person on the spot. I'm really not interested in your uninformed, stupid jack opinion.
Democrats got lucky with the...
They needed that guy. They needed that guy helping Kamala along the way. Instead, they had a bunch of prim and proper folks, like David Plouffe, for example, who had been an advisor to Obama, and then they bring him in along with Axelrod to be advisors to Kamala Harris. And these people just advised her into oblivion. All right, so there's no future. There is no future for Kamala Harris. There is no future for AOC. And there's no future for Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton also making that list, believe it or not. I mean, these people are just off in la la land because there's no chance of any of these people. They're going to have to really go back to basics. I mean, I almost feel like this party's done. Maybe they'll wind up running Liz Cheney or something because, you know, Donald Trump has taken over the entire space that the blue-collar Democrats, so to speak, used to occupy. I mean, he's out there fighting for American workers like they just simply don't know how to. They've lost their way massively. And I think it's pretty great. I really do. I mean, I'm so done with all of them.